All right, welcome to Teams Talks. I'm David Powers. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Hopefully this is not your first time at Teams Talks. If it happens to be, I like to kind of explain what our goal is with this event, with this session. We want our students to have an opportunity to meet our Mavs Edge partners. GM Financial has been a partner with us for a long time, has really engaged in a lot of events on campus. So we're really excited to have them with us today. So you will have a chance to introduce yourself to our representatives today. And we're going to spend some time also talking about networking, a topic that is critical to your job search. You hear it all the time. Many are terrified by it, don't understand how to do it, don't understand exactly what it is, yet we say all the time that it's the most important piece in your search. So I'm really excited to talk about that, especially focusing on for us introverted folks, how we might be able to network effectively, or if that's even possible for somebody who's introverted. Today, I'm joined by Andrea Mill, who's a senior university talent advisor at GM Financial, and Lyndsey Dewitt, HR intern with GM Financial. And Lyndsey, I've heard that you're not just a one-time intern at GM Financial, correct? Four. I think Clay Thompson did that with his Golden State the other
Yes,
night.
he did.
I got 4. That's awesome.
Possibly 5.
That's awesome. So excited to hear from you. We're going to do introductions in just a moment. Again, the topic is, and excuse me while I'm still letting some folks in, making sure we're getting students into the event. Our topic is networking, critical, challenging, anxiety-producing topic of networking. Thanks again for joining me. Andrea, would you care to get us started with introductions, please?
Sure. So I think what's kind of fair to say is when we hear the term networking, I think naturally we complicate that, and it's that fear, it's that fancy word. But right now it's just going to be a simple introduction, because there's a difference between introductions and elevator pitches and when you use it and how you use it. But a simple introduction: my name is Andrea Mill. I am a senior talent advisor at GM Financial. I've been at GM Financial for almost 8 months, and I am excited to share a little bit more about my background and some tips with you all.
Thank you. Lyndsey, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lyndsey Dewitt. I have been with GM Financial as a human resources intern, a flip intern, also a marketing intern, and I am on my 4th internship. It has been a year and a half, and I also attend UTA as a senior journalism major, so go Mavs. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you, Andrea. I should give my my intro as well. I'm David Powers. I'm the Assistant Director of Internships here in UTA's Career Development Center. What that means, 2 folks or 4 folks, what I actually do is assist our employer partners with developing internship programs and help them recruit you, students, help them create candidate pools. And Andrea, I really appreciate you kind of making the distinction between a pitch and an intro, because it's so important to understand context with an introduction. And we're going to give the students who have joined us an opportunity to introduce themselves. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about, as a recruiter and someone who spends time at I assume at a lot of fairs, a lot of different kinds of events. Students get pretty anxious about what to include, how much to say, how long to talk. I mean, we really overanalyze that conversation. But it is anxiety producing, and you do put a lot of pressure on yourself thinking, what if I only get this one chance, to meet this person or make a good impression? So what is it that you like to typically hear from a student in a standard intro? What's important for them to come across with?
So what you may have noticed is when we hear the term introduction, I'm thinking my name, my title, and why I'm here. But when we're talking about an elevator pitch, I love to give an example of maybe what that would look like and what I would say at this point in the career, and then in a way talk about what to include when you get to that point. So an example I want to give in regards to an elevator pitch, if I was engaging with a recruiter or in an interview, maybe this is something how I would start off, because I know that moment is kind of selling myself and my background. So if I was in a situation, I would say, hi, my name is Andrea Mill. I proudly serve as a senior talent advisor for GM Financial, where I have the unique opportunity to not only attract and acquire emerging talent, but also help plan and execute the summer full-time internship program. Over the years, I've been blessed to help guide others within their professional journey in various HR roles across industries, from staffing to retail, higher education, to now the automotive finance industry. What I've been known for throughout my career is finding the gaps in processes and advocating to remove those barriers to provide a more quality and inclusive experience. With that mindset and drive, it always drawn me to a more people-centered career, no matter the industry. So in that, it's kind of just 15 plus years in all these different industries. I think the highlight there is my transferable skills and how I always ended up in a very people-centered, focused type of role. What I would recommend in this type of setting, if I had this, it's a little bit more rehearsed, it's intentional, I know what I'm saying, I'm selling myself. A good way to end it is to ask a question. So this is at a career fair or interview or whatever it may be. How I would do this to wrap it up is I might ask a question about their processes. So I might say, what are current systems in place that your functional area is struggling to overcome? So if I'm talking about removing, finding those gaps and helping it, I'm going to ask a question to kind of go back to that because I know that's going to spotlight an opportunity to share more. So earlier I just gave an intro that was just my name, why I'm here, my title, and this was more of my pitch, my sales pitch. So those are the two differences. So to go and ask, David said, what am I looking for? Is overall the why. What gets you up and running each day? What is something that I'm not going to find from your resume or on your LinkedIn profile? Just you, your authentic self. That is what I'm looking for when it comes to an elevator pitch, or most recruiters. So I'm going to stop there, Lyndsey. I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, I think that's perfect. And also just come as you are, say any skill that you have, just list off projects, recent things that you've done as an accomplishment. It can even be school, but just try to basically just sell yourself, make sure that you're presentable and that you are able to market and go, this is what I can do. And this is what I can contribute to your company. And I think you did a beautiful job explaining all that. So that's my little add-on.
Usually we'll stay like 30 seconds, for an intro is really brief, and an elevator pitch should be about 30 to 60 seconds long.
And highlighting the fact that intros, pitches, all of the are very contextual. It really depends on the situation, on your audience, on the venue. There are a lot of things to take into consideration. And something else I want the students who have joined us live, and we have a good handful, which is great. And we are going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself in just a moment. No pressure, but is that these are rehearsed, right? I want you to know that I have introduced myself to folks countless times. And what's really interesting is they become so ingrained when you're introducing yourself. If you change your position, or you change your company, your role, you have to stop for just a second because it's so automatic. And remember that, oh, I'm no longer in that role, or I'm no longer with that organization. Introduce yourself as the role you had in your previous organization. That happens, and that happens more frequently than you would think. And people come across so polished, with these intros. But what you don't see is that it's a practiced speech, more or less. Yep. That becomes ingrained. So you will improve with practice. You do have to kind of be willing to do it and put yourself out there a little bit. So let's see if anyone with us today is willing to put themselves out there. If you want to unmute your camera and your mic and give us a shot, name, major, intended, career path would be a good start. But I'm going to give us some awkward wait time and see if we get any takers.
Don't be shy.
Complete safe space.
Circle of trust.
Yes.
And we're here for you.
And I can almost hear the students thinking, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot for me to do today. I'm not there today. I am going to give it a couple more seconds. Again, don't feel that you have to, but we will move on. Great tips for the intros. And I mean, if you're going to network effectively, obviously you've got to take that step. I mean, that's a piece that you have to get your introduction down, your pitch down. That does need to kind of be second nature for you. Something Lyndsey said something that made me think about the other piece in networking and making the impression and making your pitch is body language. Body language, I think, is really overlooked. You know it. Body language is one of those things. Is when it's bad, you know it when you see it, right? You know bad body language when you see it. So handshakes, firm handshakes. If we are shaking hands, if we're out of a pandemic, again, it's situational. A lot of context there. I've literally had employers tell me they didn't offer opportunities. It's going to sound crazy. They didn't offer opportunities because of that interaction, that literally the handshake. I mean, everyone kind of has their thing and what they value, right? And what that said to the employer was they were not assertive enough, or maybe even friendly enough to be successful in the role they wanted them in. Lack of eye contact, slumped shoulders. We talk about pulling your shoulders back and exhibiting confidence and those kinds of things. That's really important. Tone of voice, volume, all of those things play into that introduction. Anything you all would like to add?
No,
I know we're still shaking hands. Are we fist bumping? What are we doing?
Well, what's funny is actually a lot of the career fairs I have been going to, or even other events, is I actually try and also read how comfort level of the student. So if we're kind of doing this whole this is like the new thing, like, hi, like honestly, and it's okay. We know we're all hyper aware of it, but I think in regards to the body language piece, if I can give one piece of advice, is practice talking and smiling. Because naturally it's going to change your tone, especially if you're a more monotone person. If you just smile, you're going to naturally come off a little bit more excited and less nervous. And a way that you can do this too is even record yourself on your phone. See how you sound, the difference of just talking monotone versus adding a smile to it. And it's going to change. Most people are going to mirror your nonverbals. So if you're not smiling, I might not smile, and vice versa. So in a way, read the situation. But in regards to the handshake piece, I would say most of us are bypassing the handshake. It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay. And it's also going to be the if you do a handshake and you're shake someone's hand and they do this aggressive power move, that could be another no versus not confident enough. There's also the too confident handshake.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I've had students not want to shake hands because they received that bone crusher handshake at some point or another.
Yes.
Absolutely. So again, everything is context, but be prepared to kind of read the room, read the situation, and kind of adjust accordingly on the fly. So before we get deeper into networking and specifically strategies for folks who aren't thrilled about the prospect of networking or who feel like they aren't good at it, we also want to inform students more about current opportunities at GM Financial. Obviously, we've got Lyndsey, a former intern, that we would love to hear from as well. But Andrea, would you like to give us a brief overview of maybe the company, the internship program details, or kind of what you have going on in terms of needs now?
You know what I'll go ahead and do? I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'll launch a few slides real quick to have a visual. So 1 second. Go ahead.
I am also checking to make sure, yes, that you have the capability. Good. It's changing now. It's good to see. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So real quick here, I just want to highlight these are our core values and strategic priorities. And a little hint here, most of these things that you see when you are interviewing with a company, whether it's full-time or internship, when we say competency-based interviews or skill-based or example-based, a lot of the examples we're going to pull from are these core values. So inclusion, customer focus, which is culture to win, or operational excellence, teamwork, so collaboration. These are some key areas I'm just giving you guys a little hint here, when we're doing behavioral-based interviews of where we kind of pull those questions that are example-based. So this is just a quick little screenshot of what we stand by in our strategic priorities and core values. This is what we do. GM Financial, we are the captive finance arm of General Motors. So we offer retail financing and lease programs to meet the needs of each customer. We obviously deliver that for General Motors through driving vehicle sales, enhancing customer experience, providing support across economic cycles. And what that might mean too is having different type of financial services depending on the customer. So most of you may have heard of, the Cadillac had their own financial line because that could be different needs. We operate in all of GM major markets. We have 7 million contracts outstanding, and we provide finance opportunities to over 15,000 dealers worldwide. We are a global company. And one other thing I want to add here is when you hear financial, a lot of students or even people that I talk to is like, oh, you only hire accounting and finance. And that is farthest from the truth. We hire everyone for within our business to drive our corporate functions to be successful. So I'll jump ahead to there. These are the kind of areas of where we look for where you can fall in as dealer service, consumer. A lot of our liberal arts students do really well in our consumer space, IT, and then corporate. So, or enabling is what we also call it. So this will be your data science, your economic analysis, your model validation, legal, HR, finance, corporate treasury, and then IT is a data engineer, data software engineers, computer science, and then the consumer could literally exactly what you more that creative end, marketing, communication, and overall our sales and operations. So this is based on your degree, you can really fit anywhere within our organization. So don't judge a company by its title is what I'm trying to say here is we do more than just hire accounting and finance professionals. Here are some full-time career opportunities that we are honestly many, many more, but these are some key, I would say, titles that most people are familiar with. We have over 400, I think, positions or open recs right now for full-time. So if you're somebody who is graduating this December or maybe spring, I start looking, start applying, get your application. Usually the golden rule is about 90 days out from your graduation date to start applying to full-time opportunities. For our interns, we are literally posting every single day. I would say right now we probably have 20 plus internships posted on our website, and we expect to have more that keep each on a weekly basis start to post based on when our hiring team is ready. So this is right now what you can see listed, and I can actually show. I'm actually going to pull this over. If you go to GMF Financial Careers, this is just our page. If you go down, if you select employment type, if you hit full-time intern, this will give, hold on, let me refresh it. Sorry. All right, let me redo that. Hit search. And then you will see all the full-time internship, and I'll explain what the internship program is going to look like. What makes it full-time will be the summer. We do have part-time interns, like Lyndsey right now is a part-time intern, but that's during the academic term and usually offered to our interns that complete a summer internship. So we keep them as like a continuous internship model after the summer, and Lyndsey is one of those stories and she could talk about later. Here, to go back to this piece, is this current interns program anymore. I would tend to hire for. And then this is what to expect for our summer. So we run 10 weeks full time. We do ask for full commitment. Our first day will be May 31st through August 4th. We have a robust program, so development topics such as art of networking, personal branding, hearing from C-suite levels like our CFO and CEO. We do hand-on projects. Philanthropy opportunities is really important. So we do a big intern volunteer day across our core locations. And also, depending on the area that you'll be interning, you'll do a final project and present to leaders to present your findings and give suggestions. And we really do take those suggestions to heart and follow through on it. Overall, you have the opportunity to grow not only professionally, but personally by learning, all levels of people within the company. For our timeline, I'm just going to focus a little bit more on our intern positions. There's 2 steps. It's pretty defined. So if you meet those qualifications and we invite you to the first step, it's called a HireView on demand, which is a pre-recorded video Depending on the level, you could do 4 to 7 behavioral-based questions. So again, going back to that first slide of more of that competency-based. And then the final round will be with the hiring team, about 60 minutes, the STAR process. If you haven't practiced answering interview questions using STAR, please see David's office and leverage Career Services to practice. And then I will share, David, at the end, I'll put this in chat, but this is where you can connect with our talent community. This link actually is tied to this event. So if you create a profile in our talent system, it will tie you to UTA that you heard of this because of this event. And it does help when we're sourcing to see that level of engagement, that you took the time to come today and learn a little bit more. So I'm going to stop there. I know I went through that really fast, but I thought this might help to kind of give a quick overview of what we're looking for and how to apply.
No, that's super and exactly what we want. I know we have students joining us today who are curious about the process, and we are putting this information in chat. Want to reemphasize that. You're going to see that in the comments section. I think we've already got Andrea's contact information, and the website is there as well. Would love to have you check out the QR codes. Also, Lyndsey, while we're talking about the internship program, I know you have a lot that you can share with us from those four roles. So I'm just gonna open it up to you to talk about your experience at GM Financial in general, and if you want to offer some general tips to help students be successful in their search before we get into networking specifically, feel free to throw those in.
Of course. So I started my GMS journey back in March of 2021. And I was actually, a recruiter had reached out to me and we talked for about a month. And then I got into the sophomore leadership program, which was a really great program that centers around HBCUs and HSIs. But at the beginning, it was the first time they ever did that internship. So they were just looking for women, Black students and people of color to become part of that internship, just so they can have the opportunity to look through the departments, all 9 departments of the company. And so I was hired on as a sophomore leadership intern. I got to shadow all 9 departments of GM. I also had a week at school. And it was very eye-opening. It was really great. I actually wanted to go into sales. And so I'm a very hard worker. And I thought at the end of August, I was going to have to look for new internship opportunities and all that. So I applied to school full time. And they were like, we love how ambitious you are, but you do not graduate till next spring. So just hold off on it. But they're like, we're going to keep an eye out for you. So I was like, great. And while I did this sophomore leadership intern, I really enjoyed going to the HR department. I really enjoyed the marketing department. And so, and then I also helped them with a activity where they had conversation rooms where you got to network with the other interns. So I actually got to come up with questions and, interact with all the interns. And so Dana Benson actually had reached out to me and let me know, hey, I really like Lyndsey. Could you reach out to her and see if she could work in HR? She has any experience in HR. And me being a journalism major, I did not know anything about HR. So I was I was a little nervous about going on into a new role, especially because it's on that corporate side. But it was something that I really enjoyed during the summer. So I said, why not? I can make some connections. I can communicate and, hire on people and help them. And so I did that my first 6 months. And then I got asked to stay on again in the spring. And I was like, of course, I love it. And then around that time, I just started thinking, what else would I like to explore within the company? How can I make more connections? And so I got the opportunity to work as a consumer marketing intern, and I got to run their social media channels as well as create a intern video at the end of the summer. And that just opened a floodgate of more people that I got to network with. I got to connect with all the interns. I mean, there was interns like, coming to me for guidance, asking me, how'd you do it? What are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just talking, and they love it. But honestly, I really enjoyed telling my experience at GM Financial because it really did kind of steer me in the direction of where I want to go with my career. Mm-hmm. And so I realized that I really loved HR a little bit more because, that was my fam for about 11 months. And so I decided to go back and work in recruiting again. And that's where I'm at currently. So that's kind of my GMS journey. I love HR. I'm trying to do that when I graduate next summer. So. that's my little
Awesome.
story.
Yeah, a couple of questions and a couple of things I wanted to highlight. One is, I don't think students consider how important an internship can be to their career path and their career decision making, right?
Yeah.
And Lyndsey, I didn't remember this about you, but I mean, I think you sound like a perfect example of someone who, you said you're a journalism major, correct? And through
Yes.
this experience, you've been exposed to multiple departments, different sorts of fields within the same organization to kind of, I would say, test drive, for lack of a better word, those careers and see what that's
Yeah.
all about. At this point, I don't mean to put you on the spot necessarily with this question, but of the things that you've experienced there, where do you feel and see yourself gravitating? What are you gravitating to right now?
So right now it's university relations. I love working with interns, and I love working with Andrea. I love working with Michelle. Like, I just love working with that team. Like, they're so awesome. And I just remember this summer just going to the sessions where we would have like development days and just being able to talk about my experience as well as hearing others and how they're enjoying it. I was just like, oh, I would love to do this and talk to more people and connect. So that's definitely where I see myself at when I graduate.
Yeah,
And I
awesome.
have to add to that for Lyndsey is that she was seen, because she's been a veteran, seen as like a leader out of the internship. And in a way, it's like, how can we keep massaging that and making sure her growing internally? And she is doing informational interviews within the company. She is, her name from her peers as well as leaders. She's doing it all the right things, but authentically. And so, yeah, and just staying open. So no, hats off on that, but definitely seen as a leader among the interns.
Yeah, and just to add on, oh, so sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just love connecting with people. I think that's just my favorite thing to do. So, like, thing just to give out to the people here right now, like, be authentic, like, come in as you are, like, tell them that where you're interested in going, and like, go, just come in as you are. Like, I think for me, I just didn't have to like, play a face where I had to go, okay, this is, an internship. I have to be like, very, stagnant on where I want to go. And I think that was my advice to other interns, don't get too nervous or be like, can I ask this or do that? Yes, ask everything, be open, and because they're going to be open with you. And that's where like the people in the company come in. They're so supportive and helpful. So I love being myself.
We're going to talk more about who you are and being yourself, and how that, how your nature may have helped you, especially build that network and kind of be seen when we talk a little more about get into the networking itself. But I had another question that I think students would be interested to learn from. You said you had a recruiter reach out to you. How did they do that? Through what platform, or how do you feel like that happened? What helped to make that happen?
So I was on Handshake, and I just remember, I think I had applied to it, and then I got a recruiter had reached out to me about another internship, because I had applied to something else, I think within GM Financial, but then they were like, hey, I think you would fit here in this sophomore leadership program. So I would say, like, if you go to the site where, you look at the internships, there's going to be someone that's going to reach out and be like, I think, you fit there, you could fit there, but have you ever thought of this? And for me, being someone that's never came from any internship background, and I worked, and I was just a little scared. I was like, do I have like, the qualifications to do this? And I did. It was a leadership program. So I came from Kroger as a supervisor, and they were just like, if you can lead there and, communicate there, you're going to do great with this leadership internship opportunity that we have for you. So I would just say, if you see anyone on LinkedIn, especially, please utilize LinkedIn. I started LinkedIn when I started at this company, and it's incredible. Like, if you see a recruiter and you have questions, ask for an informational meeting, just so you can be like, get caught up on within the company.
Just a heads up quickly, I'm getting some of those dreaded poor network connection messages on my side. So hopefully it's not impacting the video and we're not getting any freezing. But as a heads up, I am missing some of the responses, unfortunately. So I hope everyone is getting those. Let's dive in. Let's dive into talking about networking, because I am afraid we might get the boot. If we do get the boot and we have technical issues, just hang in there with us. Usually things will reconnect and we'll try to continue. But why is this important? I think is the first thing we need to address. I mean, it's uncomfortable for people, for a lot of people, for about half the population. Networking or big event networking, I should say, different types of networking can be really uncomfortable. So in a lot of cases, you have to be persuaded that it's something you need to invest time in and that you need to do. So I'm kind of curious, Andrea, if you have a really good networking story, a personal networking story that you'd like to share, or some examples of how you've seen that happen, just from the power of your network. I just got one of those messages. I hope you heard all that, right?
I heard you.
Yep.
Can you guys hear me okay?
You're good, yes.
Okay. Overall, building a strong professional network does not, happen overnight. I would say it's something that for me was gradual. It was a marathon. It was being intentional, remembering and making those connections. And where does that fall? But I would say how it started in my early career is my classmates in my undergrad. So I went to Central Michigan University, and my first springboard big girl, I guess you say, jobs came from my classmates. So I got to know, like right now, those individuals that you're sitting in class with every day, that is your personal fear, but also going to be your professional network. Until this day, like every position that I have probably entered into because I knew somebody at the company, or we had that relationship, was able to like pick their brain and get a job realistic preview to see if that could be a good fit. Like, is my personality, is my skill set something going to be valued? When I look about how I broke into higher education and back in 2014, it was actually a supervisor that I knew when I did an internship, and it full circled almost 5 years later. And I kept that relationship. So every position I have had and where I'm at GM Financial was actually an employer that I worked closely with, was a contact when I worked at the university, kind of doing a similar role like David. When I was ready to go back to the private sector, it was that history of working together and knowing, and they're putting the referral out there. It was up to me to get the job, but building that network through those relationships, keeping it, showing your work ethic, most likely that does happen in due time, and it's a long-term game. So I would say where it started for me was really my classmates in my undergrad, is where I have to pinpoint it. Every opportunity was because maybe I met during my undergrad program.
And again, I'm looking at all of our responses and all of the feedback through trying to look at it through the lens of a very highly introverted person. So, and Lyndsey, you said some things earlier, you talked about loving, connecting, and I can tell you're a people person, and it's not difficult for you to talk to people and strike up conversation with people, or maybe even groups of people. And that is such a fantastic skill, talent, if you want to look at it that way. I feel like some people are just wired to be more outgoing than others. So, I know this might sound simplistic in some ways, but giving it just a second, I'm getting a message about a poor quality of the network once again. But just being willing to speak to people in your class, Andrea, and say hello and strike up a conversation and take the initiative to take that first step to speak. It's so easy just to go to class, put the blinders on, walk out.
And I'm going to take a step back too. Like during my undergrad, we didn't have smartphones. Like I know I'm going to state myself, it was the flip phones. So it was really easy when you were sitting there and you're waiting for the professor. You didn't have a cell phone that was distracting us, especially for introverted. So if you were introverted, you were kind of forced to talk to people around you.
Right.
So to say, what I can recommend is maybe just for those first 5 minutes of before class starts, just put the phone down. Don't be that, this is the first thing I'm going to do because I'm uncomfortable. You're missing opportunities. So that had that advantage in a way of, to be completely transparent here, I am an introvert. People might not think that, but I am. And it took practice, putting myself in uncomfortable situations. I describe myself as I can thrive in people environment, but I need a day to decompress. And things that I have done, I was that person in class when the professor said, let's do an icebreaker. I would immediately get red. My heart would start pounding. I would start sweating. Before presentations, I would be so nervous I couldn't eat. I took public speaking courses. I practiced going to events. I remember career fairs, staying in a in the back of the room and just watching until I was ready. But what I did was I did it and I practiced and took little steps. So there we can get in. I don't want to jump ahead, David, but some ways you can do it is, if you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. Don't just like a post, start creating a post. Watch at your time how people are doing this. And the more you do it, the more confident you're going to get. Maybe your goal for you one week is to speak up twice in class that week. And that's where you're going to start. I'm going to do one meet and greet, and I'm going to ask an employer a question. Start where you're at, but do it and keep practicing it. And I promise you'll get better at it. You'll get more confident. But if you don't work at it, just like any other thing in our life, you're just going to stay comfortable and you're not going to be working that muscle. So that is just a little bit of a vulnerable story on my end, but I hated public speaking. I would define myself as a introvert that hides behind extroverted traits that people always said I was extroverted when I'm really not.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, it's so important for students to hear that, to understand that. I mean, you see people who are just naturally gifted at making friends, starting conversations, and you think they've always been that way. That you can't learn to be that way. You can't learn that behavior. That's such a great story. I'll throw one out there as well. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Myers-Briggs type indicator, the MBTI. It measures extroversion and introversion. When I take that, folks are surprised that I'm off the chart, almost whatever the number is, 20-some to nothing introvert. But my career has always been one of extroversion. But the story I like to tell is when I was in I thought I wanted to be a high school social studies teacher. And I had a deathly fear of public speaking. And I was so terrified just trying to teach my peer class of 5 students when it was my turn to teach a lesson that I would break out in cold sweats, sick to my stomach, go to the restroom, take a sick day to avoid having to do it. I mean, I had a horrible fear of it. And so much so, I'm getting that message that we got a bad connection again. So much so that I quit. I quit my teacher education program and had to take some gap time and work another role before building the confidence to come back and make that happen. And since then, I mean, I speak, all kinds of groups, speeches in front of large crowds. I mean, I was a teacher and taught for 6 years. So it is possible. It just takes time and building some confidence. Lyndsey, did you have any networking stories or connection stories you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I definitely, hi, I'm Lyndsey, I'm an extrovert. I don't know how. I don't know. I think it's from my family and just seeing the way my dad interacts with people. He is just such an extrovert. He knows everyone. And I just think just seeing the way he starts conversations, because he won't even know a person and he'll talk to them for like an hour and that's his new best friend. And I'm like, wow. And so I think I just kind of saw how he communicated with people and I just brought it onto my own. And I just start off like, if I want to go talk to someone, I make myself known. I go, hey, I'm Lyndsey Dewitt. I'm this and that. And then, my favorite thing to do if I'm trying to network at school, definitely, I play this game. It's called What's Your Major? And then once you start finding out their major, it just trickles down into a friendship. And that's what I've done to get the friends I have these past 3 years. And so just asking, just like, how are you doing today? Where are you going? What you eating? Have you eaten today? Just simple things like that is definitely how I network. I just kind of I think getting personal with people is just the way I connect. And so it's just out of generosity. Like, I want to get to know you. I want to get to know how your day was. And so I think one networking story I can definitely share is me meeting another current intern who works in the HR as well. Her name is Nadia Castillo. And I actually met her at one of these chapter events that my sorority had. And she was just sitting there in the corner, and I just was like, let me go see if I could talk to her, And so I was like, hey, and then we just started talking, and, we had a lot of shared interests. And then one day, she's like, I don't usually do this, but, I just need help finding internships or anything like job opportunities. And I was like, okay, let's go out and talk. And so we talked and, connected, and we shared a lot of interest. And she ended up, getting out her comfort zone and applying to GM Financial and getting the internship. And so the next time we had went out, she's like, I don't really, I have a hard time connecting with people, but she's like, I really appreciate like taking me to events to get, more connected with the Black community on campus, because I'm part of Black Student Association and NAACP. So I just love going out and reaching out to people, as well as if I see, you have problems with communication, or, you don't really like to say hi, or you're introvert. All my best friends are introverts. So like, they're just like, Lyndsey, you broke me out my shell. And I'm like, how? But it's just, just getting to connect with them and seeing their interests is definitely just getting personal and doing it generally, because like some people, they don't do that. They're just going to be like, how you doing? And then it goes in one ear after the other. So I think just getting personal with people and then, understanding where they want to go, how their life is going is really important in networking. So.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add with the introvert piece is there's a lot of strengths within in the workplace for introverts, and where I think extroverts can also learn from in a little bit. And it could be the active listening, the processing of what is happening, and in regards to the very intentional with what you're going to contribute. I think there's a lot of awareness that the common or modern day of work is built for extroverts. And I think hiring leader, not only say, I think I know recruiters are aware of it. People in higher level positions are aware of hiring for diversity also means different personalities. And that means not having a team of all extroverts or all introverts, because so I don't want anyone to think if you're truly an introvert and this is a fear, there's a lot of strengths that you have that, but again, just the way as extroverts have to practice to maybe not be the first to speak, or maybe not to be the one to soak up most of the air in the room. The people have to practice that just as much as you might have to practice to use your voice a little bit more. So pros and cons on both ends.
Yeah. We used to do trainings. I used to guide trainings with the Myers-Briggs type indicator and talk about work styles with extroverts and introverts, and how extroverts have to back off just a bit and welcome introverts into the conversation, as introverts also have to be willing to kind of push themselves a bit. So we're getting into some tips though that I wanted students to have. I mean, even if you're not necessarily labeled as an introvert, if you just don't like networking, for whatever reason, Lyndsey hit on a couple of those. I mean, joining interest groups, finding a common interest with someone, professional organizations are great. If you want to try to keep the conversation professional, a lot of times introverts don't like small talk. They don't. They find it a little shallow, and they prefer deeper connections with fewer people. So it just doesn't speak to them. It feels performative to a lot of introverted folks. So becoming comfortable with small talk, that's just going to be a part of it in some social situations. If you're comfortable with a group and you would like to talk about more meaningful topics, you can read the room. It might be okay to introduce those kinds of topics. So affinity groups, interest groups, finding common groups, joining common groups. It's okay to do some research. A story I wanted to share, a strategy that I've seen work pretty well, is to utilize LinkedIn to conduct research on those folks that you want to add to your network. I know this is going to sound a little maybe borderline stalkerish, but if you have a common interest with that person, if you end up in the same group together or same volunteer activity together, and you can be very intentional about how you'd like to go about meeting people. And if people have left their profile open, that's what LinkedIn is built for, is to help you connect. So that kind of thing is permissible if they don't have it locked down, right? I mean, that should be kind of the expectation, that you're going to use that information to connect. And we talked about, Andrea, you brought up LinkedIn earlier as a way to make those connections and start the conversation in a way that you don't have to put yourself out there. Any other tips for folks or strategies that have worked for you?
But honestly, I know we kind of joked about a little bit of permissible stalking, but it's taking inventory. Like, here is somebody that got, and I get it, maybe 5 years out after college, it's more relatable to where you might want to go. And people don't mind sharing their story and they get it. So if you're like, hey, if you reach out to them on LinkedIn, or they might be at a particular event and you want to approach them and ask certain questions, that's okay, especially if they're an alum of an institution or similarities that David was saying. Also, like, if there's any mentor mentee programs that you can get involved in, I would. So if your university provides that opportunity, apply, because it's one of the best pieces of advice I used to always give, is sometimes we are drawn to people that are like us and we're not catching our blind spots. So if you do a formalized application to do a mentor mentee program, you might be paired up with somebody that you don't know that you needed and maybe never had spoke to, because they're so different from me, or we're not going to hit it off. Some biases could be there. We don't know that exist, that are there, that someone who's so different could check your blind spots, and you're really going to grow from that experience, and you're going to do the same. So it doesn't matter. A mentee-mentor relationship is a win-win. It's not the mentee is going to get something from the mentor is going to get something from the mentee as well. So if you can get involved in that, that's just a way to naturally network, because when you're in those type of opportunities, that person's going to want to help you, and they're going to have a network to get you in to help to build it. So every mentor I've ever had, I always was like, I'm going to introduce you to so-and-so. If they are, somebody I want to put my name, of course. So those are just low-hanging fruit to get involved. Volunteering. Everyone's there for a cause, a like-minded cause that you might be interested in. You're going to have some natural light conversation, and you don't know where it's going to lead. So start with your personal sphere, start with your college, start with your interests, affinity groups that Lyndsey was saying, and then use LinkedIn. We have that social media that's there, and doing some inventory, but then also mentor-mentee program is some tips that I would say is a good place to start.
Lyndsey, you made a good point earlier. Another skill that'll go a long way in one-on-one relationships and starting those kinds of relationships is asking good questions. I think a lot of times we put pressure on ourselves to pitch. We've all met that person who's a little too salesy, right?
Yeah.
That they're not quite maybe personal enough. So something I have always had students focus on, rather than focus on yourself, focus on the other person and ask good questions, and then listen to those responses and understand what value you could bring, or how you could be helpful, or how whatever services that you're providing could be helpful to that person. But first you have to make that connection. So good questions is a great, I think you said your dad would ask folks questions.
Yes. Yes, it's just all about the way you ask questions, and also just being like genuine. I think that's
right.
Sometimes what people miss out on is just being yourself, because you're so involved on I think as an intern or going into internships, you just really want it so bad that you're selling yourself to a point where it's like, okay, it's okay to just be like, okay, can I learn more, or just it's a little bit of people oversell themselves sometimes, and
right.
It's just just go in as you are. And I think just seeing the way my dad has made connections and the way he networks, it's helped him with job opportunities, networking opportunities. So it's just asking those questions that are genuine, and then also kind of asserting, hey, I've seen you on LinkedIn, a couple times. I've seen the type of work you do. Could you give me a little more information on that? So it turns into a kind of connection / informational type of conversation. And so I think that's my best advice for students, is to find kind of a balance with that, because, sometimes it's a little too informational, where it's just like, okay, you want to learn more about me, or,
right.
That's your possible employer. So you got to know them.
And oftentimes it seems like we learn the most from failures, and making mistakes, but it's better if we can learn from other people's mistakes. So Andrea, what would you say are some common mistakes that people make when trying to network? I mean, what are some things we want to try to avoid if maybe we have some folks that don't read social cues so well?
No, so I would, there's a few I could give, but kind of a lot of times people avoid because they think they're too nervous. And yes, preparation will help, So to get the nerves down so you don't freeze or you're not super sweaty or whatever that might be. But what I can say is nerves does show that you care. So don't just avoid something because you think you're going to come off too nervous, or I might fumble through the sentence. It's a reminder we're human. And if it become too rehearsed or too practiced, again, it could come off disingenuous. I would say another mistake that some people might do of not reading the social cue is maybe they're going right into the situation, not allowing that person to introduce themselves, or they're not asking that question, or they even might expect for the recruiter to do the heavy lifting, to say, here's my resume, what do you think I'm a good fit for? It's like, well, did you check out our career page? Did you see something that was interested in you? Tell me a little bit more so I can help guide you, because we do try to find right alignment. Like Lyndsey was saying, the recruiter was like, are you more interested in this? So sometimes just be careful, like how your approach is in that level of entitlement. I would say entitlement of expectation of find me the job, or even within David's world, like they're not placement, they're there to coach you and help you get to that point. So you have those skills of job search strategies, not to do it for you. So I think sometimes there's that level of tell me what I need to be doing or where I go. And that could be a big mistake versus you're not doing the work behind it to tell me how I can help you, if that makes sense. I'll stop there.
Yeah, and another related question that students often have is, how much is too much, right? I mean, I emphasize to students, you have to be understanding, and that's part of the reason we do these Teams Talks events. You've got to be understanding of what a day in the life of a recruiter is like, right?
Right.
How many LinkedIn messages they may have or receive on a given day, and what their inbox looks like. So I guess a question I get often is, how much is too much? I mean, what's a reasonable ask from a student if they're trying to make a connection with you or reaching out? What would be some strategies there?
When should I expect to hear from you? Or and I'm somebody that would be incredibly transparent in saying, all of our urgencies are different, but I always will reply. I'm always that person to reply, but it might be 3 days. It might be, or don't expect a response at 11 o'clock at night. I would say just to give a perspective for recruiters, we are doing events, they're doing sourcing, you're doing meetings, you're doing planning, and we could have anywhere from 10 to 40 recs. And on each of those recs could be 300 applicants. And so if we're going through each of that, it takes time, and you want the hiring manager to see it. It's not the recruiter that's making that final decision. Again, it's kind of help guide that. So what I could say is ask realistic timeline. If we say we should have an update in 2 weeks, 2 weeks, if you don't hear anything, then it's appropriate to follow up and say, hey, it's been 2 weeks, I just want to check in. And then sometimes that reminds the recruiter, like 2 weeks already went by, but
Yeah, right.
Don't take anything personal. I will say that right there. Don't take anything personal, but ask timeline and when should I expect to hear from you? And if they give that clear answer, you will, and they don't hear back, then I think it's appropriate when to follow up. That's my advice.
Great, thank you. We've got about 7 minutes left. Time is flying on us. So I want to get us through the 5 burning questions, because I know students learn a lot from hearing about your experience and being able to connect. And Lyndsey, if you would like to answer these, feel free. Andrea, I'm gonna send them your way first, and we'll kind of base things on time before we wrap up. So what was your first job, Andrea, or your dream job, or both?
So I graduated during the recession in 2009. So I took that opportunity to do a gap year of serving with AmeriCorps. City or Detroit, I'm not sure if anyone have heard, but AmeriCorps is like a domestic Peace Corps. Mm-hmm. So I took that year to
we had an AmeriCorps panel today on campus. So
no way. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm a City year Detroit alum when I went into Detroit public schools and did service learning programs and help at-risk students graduate. And then from there I fell into HR. But I will say my 2 internships actually helped me decide that I didn't want to go into politics. There awesome. Were state, yeah. So it did, but I would say my first job was I served a year. So thankful for the recession to kind of help me find that purpose and what I was going to do, and I took an opportunity.
Yeah, and a good lesson there too is, I mean, everyone's situation is different, but don't necessarily be afraid of that gap year, or taking some time to get out into the workforce and see what you want. That might save you 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, and several thousand, tens of thousands of dollars, right? In some cases. So what would you say has been most instrumental in your career development?
I would say I stayed open, stayed curious. I said yes to things that maybe not have made sense, but it always aligned. But I also wasn't in a career that wasn't so linear. So stay fluid because most careers are not meant to be. You do this, you get this. It's stay open, continuous learning, get to know people, and fail forward. Well, that would have been for me.
Another heads up that I just got a message that we have 5 minutes left in the meeting. I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know if that means we're going to get kicked out or not. I know Zoom will do that to us. Hopefully Teams won't. But we're just going to hang with it until we drop, I suppose. Role models. Do you have any role models or mentors or anyone that really had impact on you? We talked a lot about networking. So any thoughts there?
For me, it was probably my summer job, and I was in high school. I nannied for this family, and I'm a first generation college grad, and she was kind of my mentor into college. I really looked up to her, and she, I would say she was definitely a pivotal role, and it was a nanny position that I was doing that this woman took the time to really pour into and help me navigate college.
Thank you. What would you say, tough question, what would you say was your greatest failure and what you learned from it? Or biggest mistake?
I feel like
this is an interview. This feels like an interview, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one, it's like, I know, I would say in the beginning, maybe doubting myself a little bit, and not, again, going back to that confidence piece. I would say in people can pick up if you're confident or speaking with conviction. I think it took me some time I would say I regret not realizing that I always belonged at the table. And maybe I wish I would have known that more in my 20s or younger 20s than I learned in my 30s. So I wouldn't say it's a failure, but I think
realization.
Realization. I wish I would have go back and kind of slap my 22-year-old self and say, no, don't doubt. Just keep going.
I would like to smack my 22-year-old self as well for several reasons. What was the best piece of advice you've received?
Oh, don't make yourself feel small to fit into other people's spaces. So challenge the status quo. Yep, that would be my best piece of advice in personal and professional world.
Yeah,
I want to. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's it.
Oh, okay. Keep it simple. I think we're down to 3. Lyndsey, I don't know if you'd like to take a shot at some of these or would like to share anything in particular from any of those questions before we close.
Oh no, go ahead. I would say one of my role models though is probably some people I've met in the HR internship, especially Andrea, Michelle, Gwinnett, and Reem. All of them have poured into me, and I really appreciate it. So.
And I'll give you 2 more because I would love to hear your response on these before we wrap it up. What would you say has been most instrumental in your career development up to this point as a current intern?
Oh, I would say honestly my communication skills. I'm really just trying to figure out what is it that I do that everyone is just so like loves to speak with me and is inspired. And so I just would say just the way I communicate is something that I'm very proud of, like, getting just, in tune with it, especially it's helped me with every career field that I've gone or wanted. So I would just say that communication piece is so important in every aspect of job opportunities or internship opportunities.
Yeah, I'm showing we've got 1 minute, so I do want to get us to close. And I would like to thank you all. Thank you so much for joining me. It's always a good time. Andrea, thanks. Lyndsey, thank you for your time. Congratulations on those internships, GM Financial. Thank you, GM Financial, for your Mavs Edge partnership and providing these opportunities to students and supporting what we're doing at UTA. Andrea, are there any announcements or anything you'd like to share before we go?
No, just internships are now posted, full-time opportunities. David, I will reach out to you and send the link so you can share out however you out with the distribution. But don't hesitate to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. And Lyndsey, ask us any questions you may have.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
You will see you'll see this recording and their contact information showing up on LinkedIn in our internship communication. Some of it is already in the comments section, so if you want to visit there, you can grab it as well. Thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it, and good luck the rest of the semester.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.